Hello there. For this presentation, we're going to be talking about sustainable engineering, specifically how can the engineering world help to achieve the UN Sustainable Goals. So let's get started. So let me first introduce you to our little team of two. My name is Victoria and my partner's name is Abid, and I'll be going over part 1 of this presentation. Abid will be going over part 2. We're both working towards our engineering degree, me in biomedical engineering and my partner in electrical engineering. So a little thing to get to know us before we get started with the presentation. So yeah. So this presentation is going to be covering a lot, but we divided it into 4 simple sections. So the first section is our chosen UN sustainable goal. Now, if you didn't know this, the UN has a total of 17 sustainable goals. Now, obviously, we can't be going over all of these goals as we do not have the time for that, but we did choose one specific goal that I feel really represents what the engineering community is all about. After that, we're going to be going over some research and peer review articles to show you what engineers are trying to do and to help achieving the UN sustainable goal. Then we're going to be going into discussions and then a call to action, or specifically what you can do and why you should even care about this video. So, as I stated, there are 17 UN goals, but for this one we chose one specific one that I believe really kind of connects to the engineering world and what engineers value when it comes to working and their careers. So the one we chose was goal 11, which is to make cities, human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So here is the given infographic that you'll actually see if you go to the UN's actual website. Now, you should know that there is a lot of wording when it comes to this goal. In fact, the UN has literal subsections for exactly what this goal entails. So to make things simpler, my partner and I divided it into 4 sections that we'll constantly be referencing throughout the whole presentation. So please bookmark this slide, as we'll be talking about this slide countlessly throughout our research and our discussions. So the first one is to ensure access to safe, affordable housing, which is SAFE, to create an accessible transportation system, which is resilience, to ensure the safeguard of different cultures and heritage, which is inclusivity, and last, to lean towards a more sustainable, green-wise way of living, which is sustainability. So we divide it in again to these 4 different categories, and these are the actual wording that you'll see on the UN's website. So now that we know what UN goal we're going for, this is where we ask the question of how are engineers working to solve this goal. So before we go into that, I really want to elaborate why we're even talking about engineers, as I know many of you, when you think about the UN, you probably think about government officials, international affairs, policymakers, government, countries, people in that kind of atmosphere, but you don't really think about engineers. And pretty much the question that a lot of people have is, what do engineers even do and how can they even achieve this kind of goal? So this is what the slide is really talking about. So the first thing is that engineers and the UN have a lot of overlapping goals and a lot of overlapping values. Specifically, the World Federation of Engineering Organizations ensure that its members works to a more sustainable way of life, that they use both their non and technical skills to ensure a sustainable environment, and that is one of their biggest values on their About Me page. Another thing that I found that is quite interesting is that Dr. Assad and Atif Nawaz stated that engineers are the bridge between science and society, meaning that engineers hold both knowledge in the science world, but they also know how to connect it to society needs and society wants. They're able to communicate to people who are not in the engineering world and to people who are in the engineering world. So overall, engineers know exactly how to communicate among different disciplinaries, and overall, they really know how to work alongside the UN's goals. So, before we go into a little bit more about our research, here's a little video explaining the overlapping relationship between engineering and the UN sustainable goals. So I'll turn my camera off so you don't have to watch this video. So please enjoy the video.
If we are to attain sustainability in the world, I think engineers have a very strong part to play. The challenges of Freetown, I would say, is the growth of urbanization first and foremost. And with urbanization, I mean, comes a greater demand on the services, for example, like transportation, water, sanitation, electricity. We're looking at designing cities for people. The initial stage of the project is trying to get a vision of what people like about Freetown and what people dislike about Freetown. And then having established this vision, we then look at interventions, of trying to make Freetown a more sustainable city.
So hopefully you enjoyed watching that video. So now we're going to go into a little bit more of a specific piece of research, and that is the peer review article that both my partner and I searched for that really entails of what engineers are doing and how they really help towards the UN Sustainable Goals. So the research article we're doing is The Grandest Challenge of All, the Role of Environmental Engineering to Achieve Sustainability in a World's Developing Regions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go over 20 pages of this article with you, as I know you don't want to sit here for 20 minutes of me blabbing on about some papers, so I did link the article down below if you do want to read it, but I also put just the main points of what we're trying to entail from this article, and that is, first things first, it states that environmental engineers hold the discipline in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So this ties back to the idea of the bridge between science and society, as here it states that engineers know the science behind climate change, they know the science behind pollution, they know the importance of getting water sources and the difference between clean water source and dirty water sources. They know all of that, but most important, they know what society wants. They know what society craves for. They know the importance of culture, of identity, of communities. They know that those two things definitely do overlap, and therefore that's what they're working for when it comes to sustainability. Another thing that the article talked about is the 10 environmental engineering grand challenges. So these challenges go over what engineers are doing and specifically how are they trying to go towards a more sustainable way of life. So these goals kind of intertwine alongside the UN's goals, more on that later. And the last thing, the main idea of the article is to advocate for an increased discussion for the need of new improvements as well as the drive for new innovation. So overall, this paper is trying to show that engineers do a lot when it comes to sustainability. They create machines, they create new technologies, they create this new world and perspective that sometimes us normal people cannot really see. But without the discussions of these things, without the acknowledgement of these things, we sometimes don't realize how these people need more help, that we really need to have a discussion not just with engineers in the room, but with multiple disciplinary rooms across the board. So my partner will discuss more on that later, but yeah. So I talked a little bit about the 10 environmental engineering grand challenges. Here's the infographic that is given specifically from the article paper. Now, I want to take this infographic both on a global and social level and talk more about that. So the idea here is that engineers are trying to work on this problem both at social and global levels. Global levels, you can pretty much see off this infographic as engineers are working with both the UN Sustainable Goals, working with the global challenges of providing safe water and sanitation, and even the emergency global environmental issues, and pretty much trying to solve these problems on global levels. But the main thing I want to talk about is the social level here, as if you look at number 9 and 10, you'll see that they're trying to solve sustainability by integrating culture, perception, behavior, and to educate globally competent engineers. So this is very important because it provides a new perspective that sometimes we don't see. When we think about engineers, we think about people building machines, building technology, building robots, but we don't really know that engineers are the people who communicate between the scientists and between the government officials, between the robots to normal people. They understand how to shift their communication methods. They understand how to educate people to people who don't have the same education as them, who don't have the same background as them. They understand that. They understand the importance of communication, the terms of intersectionality, intercommunication, interpersonality, and interculture. They understand all of that and the importance of that. Therefore, they understand that working towards achieving a sustainable goal not only requires global efforts, but it requires social levels. As again, we're talking not only to communities, we're talking to government officials, to scientists, to all these different groups. So it's very important that we solve these problems on a social level. So this is the end of part 1. So please go to part 2, where my partner will be discussing the discussions behind this research and overall what you can do and why you should even be watching this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy part 1. So please go to part 2.